What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Hopefully you had a good weekend. Overall, we had some fun here. Did the Spawncast, of course, went back over the last week in news, and then we opened up some Switch cartridges. I'm not kidding. We tried to compare bigger cartridge sizes to smaller ones and found some pretty interesting results. So go back and check at least that video, because I thought it was kind of cool to see what was in each cartridge and what made them different internally. Again, kind of surprising. But we have some fun stuff to talk about today, including what many people in gaming, specifically analysts, are saying might be a new entry in the console market, which has a lot of people talking because the idea of it is very, very interesting. So let's get into it. Now, the console market is extremely expensive to be in. Sega has proven that to us at this point, and most of us understand that if a company is going to enter this gaming division, it's going to need a lot of money. So that rules out a lot of companies that could make their way into this division. We've talked about Amazon. They make enough money, they could do it. They have enough reserves to make that happen. They collect tons of money constantly, and they have a lot of revenue to pull from. Someone like Apple, great example of another company that is very rich and could show up to this market. Neither of them have at this point. But there's one other one that not only has the money, but they also have the know-how. They have the ability to really create operating systems, as we've seen with Android, and they have the technical know-how as well. And that, of course, is Google. And this is kind of throwing some people off, because now analysts are coming out talking about how they think Google is going to show up with some kind of gaming device with GDC around the corner. Maybe that's where they're going to announce it. I think it might be a little soon, but really what's happened here, a lot of places are starting to write articles about this with different opinions. Some saying, yes, a gaming console is going to show up. Others saying, no, this is something else. But it all seems to stem, or at least come from this hiring that really caught a lot of people off guard, because the only reason you'd hire this person is if you really want to take a shot at the gaming division. Now, the person I'm talking about is Phil Harrison. He told us on Twitter that he now works for Google. He was hired and he works there on something. We don't know what. But Phil Harrison was someone who worked with Sony and built pretty much the PlayStation brand from the ground up. He was there in 1992 and worked closely with everyone when it came to R&D, marketing, everything. He was there. He was one of the central pieces, along with others, who helped turn Sony into what we know now as a gaming division, and not so much as someone who makes a company that makes cameras and TVs. Now, at this point, everyone knows Sony as the PlayStation brand. He was there building it up. He even had a massive hand in the PS3 that, while in the beginning wasn't great, it did eventually catch up to the 360 and became a pretty good system overall. He did leave Sony in 2008, where he went to bounce around to a couple different divisions and companies, Atari, Gaikai, but then eventually he settled at Microsoft 2010, worked with them in their console divisions, just working on different things there with the Xbox, and then eventually left in 2015, and now here we are, 2018, he's working with Google. And again, you don't hire someone like this unless he's there for a certain reason. It's very odd to go out and get someone like this if you want them to do something like, I don't know, search engine work or something, right? But Google takes a lot of chances. They do a lot of stuff. They've even really broken into the world of ISP, and they're working with their Google Fiber lines and things you wouldn't think. They're doing it. So it's only natural that they might look at this division, something else that is in homes. Google seems to want to be in people's homes, be a part of their lives, and collect information and data, right? Well, game consoles, while they're very popular, they still are popular despite people saying, oh, the gaming division is dying. Actually, it's rising. It's going to be more popular this generation than it was last generation with 360 and the PS3, and that was pretty good, I think. So here we are. Google hires Phil Harrison for what? Gaming? Or maybe it's more along the lines of something like Polygon said, where they're talking about augmented reality. That is also a possibility, as Phil Harrison did talk about his interest in augmented reality last year in an interview with Eurogamer. So, what do we think here? Could Google show up with a gaming console? Could he show up and work with their augmented reality team to get that off the ground and get it really in the eyes of the mainstream? Because he was good with marketing, as well as we saw with the Sony division, working again alongside several people to make this happen. But we've seen where PlayStation is now, taking it from nothing to being this extremely successful brand. I mean, that's a pretty good thing to have on your resume. I do want to say, if Google does show up with some kind of entry into the gaming division, I don't think it would be be anything portable. I think if they showed up, it would be something that stayed in your home because they already have something that you have portably, and that's your cell phone. Most people have either an Android or an iOS device, and if you have a tablet, maybe you have an Android one instead of an iOS tablet. It's generally Google, I think at this point, doesn't need to design something that would leave the house. I think they want to be in your house. I think they want to have like a multimedia device that, other than their unbranded, kind of boring Android boxes, right, that you can buy, they want something that's branded, it's Google, and it's in your house, and it's, the sleek looking game console. And of course, they can easily pull from several different places and build something. They can get NVIDIA, they can get AMD, they could get anyone to really build this up from the ground up for them for what they want. Would it be a powerhouse? That's the question. Would they go for the 4K division, or would they go for something a little more moderate and really compete with on their own terms? And then they also have to figure out games. There's a lot of things to do here, and the fact that really they're predicting that without us hearing anything prior, it's a little weird. Usually we'd get leaks, especially with something this large, but Google has been very quiet about Phil Harrison's hiring. So who knows at this point? We'll just have to keep an eye on this, because I would like to see another competitor in the division. And hey, if Google enters, that's someone that all three, Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, would have to be worried about. Next up, let's quickly go over the world of emulation. This is very interesting because the Vita, which is kind of a dying system at this point, can't really buy the system anymore, right? You can buy games at some places, but even my local Walmart has pretty much jettisoned everything. I don't even think you could buy a carrying case from there, and they had a lot of those. No system, no games, no memory cards. You have to look secondhand at GameStop, sometimes Best Buys, if they have used games, to find Vita games. That's what you have to do, or order online. So at this point, I'm happy to see some Vita emulation start to show up, and that's what we're seeing now with the Vita 3K open source emulator that is currently running homebrew. There have been some people showing it off with Quake, which is pretty cool. It's in its early stages though, so we won't see it running commercial games for years, at which point it will be officially discontinued. Sony still sells them in Japan more than anywhere else. I don't really see it sold anywhere in the US at this point, but it is only a matter of time before games altogether stop being released. We do see some, of course, Catherine is being released on there. Secret of Mana Remake is being put on there, but mostly the games are starting to decline, and I think in a year, 2 years, there won't be any games released on the Vita. So I'm happy to see an emulator because it's hard to find the game system and games, and at this point, it'd be cool to see what we can pull out of the design of the Vita, because we see what happens when these go to the computer. They usually smooth out visuals, and of course, it would be nice just to preserve some way to play that system beyond actually having to go out and buy it, because it's getting tough to find them. Next up, let's talk about a kind of an interesting turn of events here. We've talked about the Switch's success with indie games, where it generally sells more on the Switch than any other platform, and that includes Steam. Although again, I think Steam's overcrowded, and that's why games on the Switch are selling more than Steam, not because there's more interested users. I just think it's hard for people on Steam to find these games. And well, with the newest release that just came out a couple days, like 5 or 6 days ago, LeGrande Legacy, it looks like they're going to be accelerating the release of the Switch version to get it out. So LeGrande Legacy is described as a love letter for JRPG and tactics-based games. It looks pretty fun. The visuals don't look, I don't think, the best, but half the time when I'm playing an RPG, I don't mind as long as the gameplay, the progression system, the characters are interesting enough. These are all things that I really hold, I guess, above visual style, because there are some games that don't look the best that I'll still play if the gameplay is fun. So I'm okay with RPGs like that. I mean, a lot of games that are like cel-shaded and stuff, I don't mind, as opposed to a very realistic one. The one, I guess, that would be kind of above that looked really good, I thought at the time, and I enjoyed, was something like Lost Odyssey. That was really fun. But this game, interestingly enough, is supposed to come out Q1 of 2019. But according to them on Twitter, the team, they're actually going to push the Switch version up and come out this year. And they're going to leave the Xbox One and the PS4 versions for Q1 of 2019. It's already out on Steam. If you want to check it out, you can. The system requirements aren't very high, so it's going to be interesting to see when it comes over to the Switch, to see how it runs and everything. But the big thing here is, to take away, it seems like developers, indie ones in particular, are realizing that the Switch is where to go. Like, they're going to accelerate this, probably put more people from their team on the Switch version to get it out the door, ready to go. It appears that it's $25 on Steam right now, so expect, I guess, a similar price on the Switch, although we just saw what happened with Earth Wars, where that's like, 75% less than the other versions, but still, I'd expect this going forward to see this more so. You're going to see more Switch games, I think, get accelerated to try to come out on the same day or even before some of these other systems. And our last bit of news, let's talk a bit about the world of Secret of Mana. We've talked about this a good bit recently, at least over the past couple of news waves, because we talked about how the producer of Secret of Mana was surprised at how the fan base for the Switch, even Switch owners, want Secret of Mana on the Switch as well. Even the collection, bring the collection over, we're okay with that. But apparently, the reason they're doing a lot of this, the remake, the collection, is because they're building up to a new Secret of Mana, at least a new entry, a Secret of Mana 3 or whatnot. But in this case, they might put it on everything, including the Switch. And this was from the producer that we heard from last time, talking to DualShocker, saying, "Personally, after I took up the role as the producer of the Mana series, it has been our goal to create a new title in the Mana series. With that said, there has been this period of time that an entry in the Mana series hasn't been released. We've decided to remake the Adventures of Mana and Secret of Mana in order for people who have played the titles to get to know it once again, as well as give players who are new to the series an opportunity to experience the game and get everyone up to speed." And then when asked about bringing that game, the one they're thinking of that they haven't announced yet, to the Switch, they simply replied, "Considering the amount of passion people have for the platform, it will be hard to remove it as a release option for any future projects." So they at least hear people that, listen, they want it on the Switch. People want it on the Switch. We need to make sure it's there. It's easy to port to according to a lot of different developers, and I do think their vision for what we've seen with the Secret of Mana remake would run fine on the Switch. It's on the Vita, right? Like, it's going to run better on the Switch even than that. So I do think they realize this. This game, this new Secret of Mana game, probably went into development around the time the Switch did show up, so I think that will be on the Switch as well when they make this new Secret of Mana game, which has me excited, because I'd like to see what something like a new age Secret of Mana would look like, right? Not simply a remake, one that was designed to also be on the Vita, something that's designed and it's coming out on the PS4 and the Switch. I don't know how much the Xbox One would benefit from that kind of game, but hey, if Microsoft wants it there, they'll go get it. But anyway, just a game that comes out, Secret of Mana, and it's for the newer consoles. You know, they can do what they want with the visual style and everything, but just see how they would do things with gameplay. Would it be like standard action RPG? Would you have multiplayer built in? There's a lot of stuff that could be really cool, and then where do they take the story? The good news here is it sounds like they are working at this point on getting a new Secret of Mana out the door, but if they want to get people more familiar with Secret of Mana that maybe didn't experience it when it was back on the Super Nintendo, right? How about you go localize that one over in Japan? You know, the collection, I think that would really benefit going to other places other than just Japan to get people primed, right? Get people ready for this new Secret of Mana. That's the whole point of these remakes. That's the whole point of getting Shenmue 1 and 2 remade and put out. So people who didn't play it on the Dreamcast or even the original Xbox can play it ahead of time for Shenmue 3. So yeah, Square, I bet you go get that game, get it localized, and get people ready for this new Secret of Mana that I guess is going to show up in the next couple of years. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for Newswave today. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, guys. Really helps out. If not hit the dislike, leave a bunch of comments down below about everything we talked about. The Google Game Console. Is it a thing? Or is this just Phil Harrison going there to help working with augmented reality, since, well, Google does seem to be on the VR boat at least, right? With different headsets they've been talking about, trying to merge it with Android, all these things. Or do you think maybe he really is there to get Google on the map for game consoles? I would love to see it, just to see what they come up with, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. And then, of course, this Secret of Mana game. What would you like to see from the new game? And do you think it is just going to all consoles, as they seem to hear really the desire for that to happen, the demand, if you will? Let me know, guys, down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.